The wind bit through the night like knives, rattling the rusted frame of the bus stop shelter. Commuters shuffled their feet, collars raised, eyes glued to the glowing arrival board. No one looked at the girl curled on the bench. Her coat was far too thin for the September chill, her shoes scuffed and damp from melted snow. She sat hunched over, clutching her elbows, her hair a curtain against the world. The bus came and went, taking with it the rush of bodies, leaving silence behind. Only a few stragglers remained. That's when a small figure broke free from a man's hand. The child, no more than 6, marched straight toward the bench. Her little boots splashed through a shallow puddle as she stopped in front of the girl. For a moment, she just stared, tilting her head as if studying a puzzle. The girl, startled, lifted her face. Her eyes were red from the cold, lips trembling, and yet she managed a faint, polite smile. The child leaned in close, her breath puffing clouds into the air, and whispered, "Can you be my mommy?" The words struck like lightning. The girl froze. The handful of strangers still at the stop turned their heads. A couple on the far side exchanged glances, one with amusement, the other with soft surprise. Behind the child, a man in a tailored coat strode forward quickly, tension in every step. His polished shoes clicked against the pavement. His jawline was sharp, his expression sharper, the kind of presence that made people step aside. He was Ryan Hale, the CEO whose name often appeared in headlines with words like ruthless, powerful, untouchable. Yet in that moment, he looked helpless. "Lila," he said firmly, trying to tug his daughter's hand. "That's enough. Come back here." But the girl clung tighter to the stranger's fingers. "Daddy, she's warm," Lila said, her little voice carrying more weight than the night air. "I like her." The young woman's throat tightened. "Sweetheart, I think you're mistaking me for someone else," she whispered gently. Her voice cracked, as though she hadn't spoken aloud in days. Lila only shook her head, pigtails bouncing. "No, you feel like home." A hush fell over the shelter. Even the wind seemed to pause. The girl's eyes brimmed with tears. She tried to blink away. She wanted to laugh, to tell the child she had nothing to give, not even warmth. But the child's tiny hand was wrapped around hers like a promise. Ryan crouched down to his daughter's level, his expensive coat brushing against the dirty pavement. His voice softened, rare for him, as he said, "Lila, you can't just ask strangers things like that. She's not." He stopped when he saw the young woman's face. Not the poverty, not the exhaustion, but the way her expression shifted at his daughter's words, like a flame had been lit in the darkness. The crowd around them was no longer indifferent. A middle-aged woman smiled faintly, nudging her husband. A teenager pulled out a phone, recording discreetly, sensing something worth remembering. The girl tried to pull her hand free, embarrassed. I'm sorry," she murmured. "I didn't mean to." But Lila tightened her grip. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, locked onto the strangers as though she'd found treasure no one else could see. "Don't go," she whispered. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in years, the CEO had no command, no plan, no script. Just a child's innocent plea and a stranger's trembling silence, witnessed by a bus stop full of people who would never forget the night a little girl chose her own forever. The invitation came awkwardly. Ryan had meant it only as a courtesy, a polite way to untangle the strange moment at the bus stop. But by the time the car pulled up to his townhouse, he found himself glancing in the rearview mirror more than once. His daughter's head rested against the stranger's shoulder, her small hand still holding on as though afraid letting go would make the woman vanish. Emily, she had finally told them her name in the car, voice hesitant, stepped inside the house like someone entering a museum where she didn't belong. The foyer glowed with polished marble, high ceilings, and warm lights, a world far removed from the drafty shelter she had been sitting in only hours ago. She tried to slip off her worn shoes quietly, conscious of the spotless floor. "Emily, you don't have to," Ryan began, then stopped when he saw how carefully she placed them by the door, as though even her footprints might leave a stain. Dinner was already set. His housekeeper had prepared roast chicken, glazed carrots, and steaming bread rolls. The long dining table stretched farther than necessary, but Ryan found himself pulling out the chair beside his daughter's, not across from it. Emily hesitated, then sat, folding her hands in her lap. For a while, the only sound was the clink of silverware. Ryan cut his food with mechanical precision, but his gaze drifted, against his will, toward the quiet figure beside his daughter. Emily chewed slowly, politely, as if she was afraid of taking too much. Then Lila broke the silence. She picked up a bread roll, tore it in two, and held a piece out to Emily. "Here, Mommy always gives me bread first." Emily froze. Her throat worked as though swallowing was impossible. "Sweetheart, I'm not." She looked at Ryan, uncertain. Ryan cleared his throat. "Lila, Emily is our guest. You don't have to." But Emily stopped him with a small shake of her head. She leaned down, her voice gentle but steady. "Thank you, Lila. That's very kind." She accepted the bread with both hands, as though it were sacred. The child's smile lit up the table more than any chandelier. "See, Daddy, she knows how." Ryan almost smiled. Almost. He picked up his wine glass instead, trying to ignore the way his daughter nestled against Emily's arm as though she belonged there forever. The conversation stumbled forward in fragments. Emily spoke about small things. The weather, the music drifting faintly from the living room, how beautiful the house looked. She asked Lila about school, listened with genuine interest as the girl recited stories about classmates and teachers. And through it all, her laughter, soft, unpracticed, slipped out like a melody Ryan hadn't heard in years. He watched them, something twisting in his chest. He had brought countless associates and acquaintances to this table, all of them polished, rehearsed, eager to impress. Yet none of them had made his daughter's eyes sparkle the way this woman did. None of them had filled the empty spaces between courses with warmth instead of shallow chatter. At one point, Lila insisted on feeding Emily a spoonful of carrots. Emily laughed, shaking her head, but allowed it anyway, the orange sauce smearing slightly on her lip. She wiped it off with the corner of her napkin, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But the look in her eyes, gentle, alive, was something Ryan couldn't ignore. The meal ended quietly, plates cleared, the housekeeper retreated. For a moment, the three of them sat in the glow of the dining room like a family who had done this every night. Emily lowered her gaze, fingers brushing the tablecloth as though memorizing its texture. Ryan opened his mouth to thank her, to remind himself and her that this was temporary. But the words stuck. He saw the way Lila leaned against Emily's shoulder, already drifting toward sleep, and something inside him refused to speak. Instead, he simply watched, caught between disbelief and an ache he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He realized then that this wasn't a performance or a courtesy dinner. This was something far more dangerous. This was the beginning of a story he could not control. The house was quiet after dinner, the kind of silence that only comes when the world outside has surrendered to night. Ryan had retreated to his study, pretending to work while staring at the same contract for nearly an hour. The words blurred together. His mind kept wandering back to the image of Emily at the dining table, her laughter mingling with his daughter's, like sunlight pouring through windows he'd long since boarded up. Upstairs, Emily lay awake in the guest room. The bed was too soft, the room too beautiful. She felt like an intruder, someone who didn't deserve this warmth. She sat on the edge of the mattress, her hands twisted together, fighting the urge to cry. This wasn't her life. She knew that. At dawn, she would slip away quietly and return to the shadows where she belonged. A soft creak interrupted her thoughts. The door opened just wide enough for a small figure to slip through. Lila padded across the carpet in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Without hesitation, she climbed onto the bed and sat beside Emily. "Can you be my mommy?" she whispered again, her voice trembling with sleepy hope. Emily's heart broke. She cupped the child's face with trembling hands, eyes shimmering. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured. "I wish I could, but I don't have anything to give you. Not a home, not a family, not even myself." Her voice cracked. "I'm not good enough." Unseen in the doorway, Ryan stood frozen. He had come to tell Emily something simple: thank you, goodbye, maybe even an apology. But the words dissolved as he watched her, this woman who believed she was worth nothing, cradle his daughter like she was everything. Lila shook her head, stubborn in the way only children can be. "You gave me bread when I gave you bread. You smiled at me, you listened. That's enough." She wrapped her little arms around Emily's waist. "That's mommy." Tears slipped free before Emily could stop them. She clutched the girl, rocking gently, as though she might dissolve if she let go. Ryan stepped inside at last. His voice was low, unsteady in a way that startled even himself. Emily. She looked up sharply, eyes wet, cheeks flushed. She opened her mouth to apologize, to explain, but no words came. He crossed the room, kneeling beside the bed. His gaze moved from his daughter, curled trustingly against Emily, to the young woman herself. In her he saw no polish, no wealth, no social advantage, only honesty, raw and unguarded, something rarer than any contract he'd ever signed. "You're wrong," he said softly. "You think you have nothing, but you've given more in one evening than anyone else has in years." He reached out, almost hesitantly, and brushed a tear from her cheek. Maybe we all need a little forever. Not later, not tomorrow, tonight." The room held its breath. Emily blinked at him, disbelief etched into every line of her face. "Ryan." Her voice cracked on his name. For the first time in a long time, he smiled, not the calculated one he used in boardrooms, but a fragile, human smile. "Stay, please." Lila stirred, half asleep, murmuring happily against Emily's shoulder. "Forever, Mommy." And just like that, something shifted. The girl who had shivered alone at a bus stop now sat with a child in her arms and a man at her side, the three of them woven together by need, by chance, by something larger than themselves. Downstairs, the world outside raged on with deadlines and headlines. But in that quiet room, a family was born. Not by blood, not by plan, by love. And for the first time in years, Ryan Hale, the ruthless CEO, believed in miracles.